Hey there guys, welcome to my reaction to Resident Evil Requiem's 4th trailer, and we have got some big things to talk about with what they have revealed with this 4th trailer, because we got confirmation that Leon is infected, and apparently he's infected with the T-virus. And it's not some recent infection. The trailer is implying that Leon was somehow infected with the T-virus during the Raccoon City incident, and that the T-virus has been lying dormant inside him for almost 30 years. I hope this is just misinformation provided by the trailer, because that makes no sense at all. I was so puzzled by this that I even went to Resident Evil 3 Remake and Resident Evil 5 to look over some files related to the T-virus, which respectively are Jill's report and Jill's bio. Jill's report is probably the most important file, because I saw some other YouTuber mention how there was seemingly a deliberate change in the wording between certain files from Resident Evil 3 OG and the remake that could have relevance to Resident Evil Requiem, but I'll talk about that later. Right now we have this reaction video, which I do want to say that my initial reaction to this trailer was mixed. This idea that Leon was infected with the T-virus since the Raccoon City incident makes no sense, but I'll talk more about that later on. Let's just continue with this.
That's 6 now.
Yeah, 6 survivors of Raccoon City are now infected.
6 survivors of Raccoon City, all dead from the same thing.
So apparently the dead victims shown in the game's trailers are former survivors of Raccoon City, which has caused people to assume that they're the characters you play as in Resident Evil Outbreak, but I doubt that's the case. For one thing, Koshi Nakanishi said you don't have to play Resident Evil Outbreak to understand Requiem. Also, if the developers aren't going to mention things like the events of the animated movies and the games, or even characters like Billy Cohen or Ark Thompson, then I doubt they'd mention some generic background characters from Resident Evil Outbreak. Not to mention Resident Evil Outbreak contained some confusing events that contradicted the other games.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, so Leon's looking at his hand, so obviously this is an indication he's infected, and they show it later on where he removes his glove, and you can see the black marks on his hand.
Victor purchased a building after Umbrella went under. The Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center.
And how this building is going to tie into Raccoon City is beyond me. And he's looking at something here. I'm guessing this is a body. I gotta say, like, a lot of this stuff here feels reused from Resident Evil 4 Remake, and also Resident Evil Village with these row entrograms, and even the design of the room here. And there's a camera in the skull. Interesting place to put that. So we've already seen these shots right here.
You okay?
So we have this new area now. This area reminds me of the garbage compactor area from the Claire 1 episode of Resident Evil Revelations 2, and given that Leon is boosting Grace up, there may be moments where they're together in the gameplay.
What does Victor want with you?
Yeah, so what does Victor want with you? This makes it seem like Grace is the pivotal character, but this trailer really tries to make Leon seem like the pivotal character, especially when we know he's infected. For all we know, Grace may somehow be the key to saving Leon from this infection, but that shouldn't be the case if Leon's taken many vaccines, and has also survived infection via the Plaga, for instance. And Leon being infected with the T-virus is confusing if Will Pharma made a T-virus vaccine in 2005, since Umbrella couldn't mass-produce their vaccine in 1998, and we know that Jill was given the vaccine made by Umbrella during the Raccoon City incident, when she was infected by Nemesis. But how could Leon have been infected during the Raccoon City incident? He never drank water, and now apparently in Resident Evil 3 Remake, there's this file that is mentioning that the strength of the virus is so high that airborne infection can be discounted, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. It makes no sense, guys. Like, I'm going to talk more about this later on.
What do you mean?
And we have this area here. This literally looks like the cell block area in the RPD, but it just looks slightly different. Like, I'm not too sure if Grace actually goes to Raccoon City with Leon, and maybe, like, Gideon has been making some updates to this area, because it just looks so familiar.
He grabbed you for a reason.
Yeah, he grabbed you for a reason. We see right here the same email. So, again, to the White House Chief of Staff. So this is, again, relating to the U.S. government's corruption and how they were involved in the production of BOWs. And they were, like, Umbrella's first customer. But this is something completely different. So they're mentioning Raccoon City, and all this is redacted. And then for the sake of Elpis, commence. I'm guessing it's the thermobaric missile strike on Raccoon City. But we know that the missile strike was done in Raccoon City to cover up the U.S. government's involvement with the production of BOWs, and also to prevent the spread of the T-virus outbreak. But now apparently there's a new factor with that, and it's because of Elpis.
Did you find anything on Elpis?
Not yet.
And this is presumed to be Sherry. Like, this looks like Sherry right here. And also we have this. This is a big file that they're already introducing to us in this trailer. So this is the report on the Raccoon City Syndrome. I'm amazed they are revealing this right now in this 4th trailer, just before the game is about to release. So it says here, this report outlines the current research on latent onset T-virus syndrome, henceforth referred to as Raccoon City Syndrome. I see what Koshi Nakanishi was saying when he called this the Umbrella Curse, but it's actually called the Raccoon City Syndrome. So Raccoon City Syndrome occurs when residual T-virus within the body mutates over a prolonged period of time. See, like, in Resident Evil Outbreak, I know there was a gameplay mechanic where the survivors were infected, and when they took damage, this infection meter would go up. Like, I don't know how the mechanic works, but I think once it hits 100% and you're playing in multiplayer, you turn into a zombie, and so you're then able to hunt down other players. But it didn't feel like it was canon. It just felt like a meta game element, just something that existed in our eyes and not in the characters' eyes. And I know they took the daylight vaccine in order to cure their infection in one of the scenarios of Resident Evil Outbreak before they got on that helicopter. I think that was in file 1 of Resident Evil Outbreak, where we're introduced to the Daybreak vaccine. But apparently that wasn't enough, and also Leon and potentially characters like Claire and Ada were somehow infected with the T-virus. But then you'd assume Sherry was infected by the T-virus, but I'm guessing, because she had the G-virus, it somehow eliminated the virus, like the two viruses were at war with each other or something. Like, it makes no sense how this works. And I know in Resident Evil 3 OG, there was a whole story moment with the Dead Factory where there was contamination of the drinking water from the Dead Factory because it was leaking into the city's water supply. And there was no mention of any airborne infection in the files of Resident Evil 3 OG, but in Resident Evil 3 Remake, they've changed it to say, because of the strength of the virus, airborne infection can't be discounted. But that doesn't make sense, because in Resident Evil Vendetta, I remember when Arius infected Rebecca with the enhanced A virus, he mentioned that by increasing the toxicity of the virus, it could no longer be distributed via the air, so he had to inject the enhanced A virus into Rebecca via a needle. But apparently it's different in this case, where the T virus's strength, if it increases, it's now able to be distributed via the air. And the other time we've seen a virus being dispersed through the air is with the C virus, and that was with the Lipotitsa, and also with that missile strike on Lanshang, and also with Chaos as well, because we know once Chaos was released into the world, the virus would have been distributed through the gas emitted by Chaos. I just don't understand how they're going to explain this. It's going to make no sense how characters like Leon are possibly infected with the T virus, even after all the vaccines they've taken. You're telling me that Leon never took the Will Pharma vaccine in 2005? Rebecca even gave him a vaccine for the animality virus, and also for the T-viral variant used by Dylan Blake in 2015 in Resident Evil Death Island. And that virus was deemed identical to previous viruses that the team had encountered, which is why Rebecca was able to develop a vaccine as easily as she did in Resident Evil Death Island. And I know that with Jill, she took the vaccine from Umbrella in Resident Evil 3, but the virus was still around. But in Resident Evil 5, it's mentioned that the T-virus disappeared once it was reactivated again when Jill was in cryogenic sleep because of Wesker capturing her. But apparently it's different here. It doesn't make sense. But continuing on with this file, I have yet to find an effective treatment, and when it manifests, its results are fatal. Raccoon City Syndrome appears to develop through the following stages. Stage 0, dormant. So this is taking a cue from Resident Evil Vendetta, or even with Resident Evil Revelations 2, with how Alex Wesker infected everyone with the T-Phobos virus, and the virus would activate in response to fear. And also with like the T-virus strain that was dormant within Jill Valentine as well. But it says here, the virus lies temporarily dormant within the host due to the presence of specific antibodies. And the mention of the antibodies, of course, relates to when Jill was infected by Nemesis's T-virus, which was a more potent variant that incubated within Nemesis's own body. But clearly, like, Jill had antibodies that counteracted the T-virus within her. You're telling me that no one else developed antibodies after they took the Will Pharma vaccine? I mean, I know, like, TerraSave delayed Will Pharma's distribution of the T vaccine accidentally due to their constant accusations against Will Pharma for potentially participating in bioterrorism. I don't get it, guys. It doesn't make sense. But back to this file. As the virus is not completely suppressed, it begins to build an immunity to the antibodies over time. But the thing is, with Sherry Birkin, when she was infected with the G-virus and then given the devil vaccine, the G-virus didn't get stronger. It adjusted to her body, and that's how she has the capability she has, like with being able to regenerate from minor injuries. As we see in Resident Evil 6, when she had that piece of a plate plane embedded within her back in Chapter 2 of Jake's campaign, but it's different with the T-virus. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then we have stage 1, which is activation. So the virus becomes active, and black bruise-like marks begin to appear on parts of the body. Mild symptoms such as general malaise and coughing occur. Stage 2, development. The black marks spread further across the body, coupled with numbness in the affected areas. The marks extend to the internal organs, sometimes leading to hematemesis, which is the vomiting of blood. Stage 3, terminal. The black marks darken and spread across the entire body. Severe pain and intense fatigue make moving difficult. Vomiting of blood becomes uncontrollable. Patients at the terminal stage typically die within 1 to 2 hours. And this is all apparently top secret. So this is with the Advanced Research Projects Division of the U.S. Department of Defense. So were they just conducting experiments on these patients at the Rhodes Hill Clinic with the supervision of the U.S. government? That still doesn't change the fact that this makes no sense.
Nothing on the servers at the CIA.
We have a couple of enemies here. So we have another bladed enemy. So this guy behaves no differently to the butcher enemy, it seems.
Nothing on the servers at the CIA or the Pentagon.
So they're talking about the CIA and the Pentagon. I mean, in Resident Evil Death Island, they talked about the DoD servers. Like, Dylan hacked the DoD servers and managed to gain classified information on Leon, Chris, Jill, and Claire. So now they're talking about the CIA here. So then we have Leon with a sniper rifle. There's a zombie there. And we have a mutated zombie here. So this enemy is apparently called a Blisterhead. It looks similar in appearance to the Glava Begunats from Resident Evil 6, and they even seem as aggressive as that enemy type.
Ignorant.
And that enemy somehow didn't die from a shotgun blast to the face, even though it looks pretty fleshy. And that's different, so it looks like Leon can do a similar kind of running charge to Jake Mueller's running charge from Resident Evil 6. I'm not sure how the input works here. Maybe it's like Ada's hookshot from Resident Evil 4 Remilk. Interesting.
Leon, we're running out of time.
Yeah, there it is. There's the infection.
Why me?
Okay, interesting shot of a bunch of crows.
The team has settled on a person of interest.
Is this the gas station from Resident Evil 2 Remake? And I don't know where that body comes from. Why is there just a skeleton here? We didn't see any zombies die here, but I'm guessing they probably died out. I mean, if the virus is able to lay dormant for this long, does that mean that zombies can live for a prolonged period of time? I don't think so, because the virus would have destroyed the body from the inside out. Because viruses will always eradicate their hosts entirely. So maybe a zombie died here, and that's why that skeleton is there. And this is supposed to be the gas station from Resident Evil 2 Remake. Of course, I don't know why the ceiling is broken. Was it somehow affected by the missile strike? Odd. And again, like, where is the lockdown taking place? Like, where is the quarantine wall that is set up around Raccoon City if the city is on lockdown? And we know that the lockdown for Raccoon City is being extended until 2040 because of sinister reasons, most likely. But if that's the case, though, why is Leon able to enter Raccoon City by himself without anyone from the US government overseeing his actions or stopping him? That's what puzzles me. How is Leon able to enter the city without the US government getting in the way if they're covering up something sinister here? Because we know Elpis is apparently so important the White House knows about it.
A former T-virus researcher.
Yeah, so Victor Gideon is apparently a former T-virus researcher. Was he one of the people evacuated from the city? Because recall that in Resident Evil 1's files and Resident Evil Death Island, there were groups like Dylan's PMC that were hired by Umbrella to assist in the evacuation of Umbrella Corporation executives and government officials only. Wait a second. In Resident Evil 3 Remake, Umbrella was killing all the researchers. So how did Victor Gideon not get killed by Umbrella if they were killing all the researchers in Resident Evil 3 Remake to prevent the truth about the Raccoon City incident from getting out? How did he not get killed by Umbrella then? That doesn't make sense. He must have been really, like, smart or something, or maybe he got lucky that he was able to escape. Or maybe Umbrella did kill him, but much like James Marcus, where the Queen Leech roosted inside of him for a period of 10 years and gained his memories, and then the Queen Leech turned into James Marcus, Victor Gideon was likely revived via the virus that's in his system. And is that virus really supposed to... Wait... How is Victor maintaining his consciousness then? There wasn't any mention of the maintaining of your consciousness in that Raccoon City Syndrome report. So why is it different with Victor? That doesn't make sense. Already, there's just so much confusion regarding this point. This is what I mean when I say this is probably the most controversial Resident Evil trailer in my mind right now, because there is so much here that feels contradictory to the lore that we know. It's so confusing. And I don't know who that is. I'm guessing this is like another test subject because we see some kind of test subject later on in this trailer. It almost feels like they're reusing that aspect from the Shadows of Rose DLC where you remember how Rose encountered clones of herself created by Miranda? Maybe they're doing that clone idea again.
Because my master made you who you are.
Is he addressing that to Grace? I really have no idea, because that would then imply that Grace was manufactured like Wesker was. But that wouldn't make sense because it's implied that Grace was born after the Raccoon City incident, so when could Victor Gideon possibly have gotten his hands on Grace and an experiment on her? And based on what we saw with the Renwood Hotel, it doesn't seem possible for Victor Gideon to have possibly gotten his hands on Grace, unless that whole sequence in the Renwood Hotel is somehow a false memory. And also, who's the master that Victor Gideon is referring to? Is he referring to Spencer? Did Spencer actually talk with Victor Gideon? It's almost like Victor Gideon is trying to create his own version of Project W that Spencer was trying to do with the Wesker children. Okay, so we have some kind of experiment happening here. So I'm guessing they're just looking at the Raccoon City Syndrome again. Of course, why this dormant T-virus is creating these blister heads is beyond me. We've never seen this kind of mutation with the original T-virus. Next thing you know, they're going to say that the blister head stage precedes a transformation into a liquor, for instance, which would be really silly, especially when we don't know what strain of the T-virus this is exactly. And I know a leak mentioned that the virus in this game is called the Alanthropus virus, but it must be some kind of T-virus variant if they're talking about the Raccoon City Syndrome. So I have no idea what this is. We know that in Resident Evil 2 Remake, there was a file in the orphanage mentioning that William Birkin did tests on children. Is this related to that, or is this something entirely different? Was Gideon doing his own research? If that's the case, why do we not hear about him in the other games? As far as I can tell, like, to me, it just feels like a lot of Umbrella's researchers were just working on viruses by themselves. You know, it felt like Birkin was by himself, James Marcus was by himself, Ashford was by himself when they developed their T-viral variant, or in William Birkin's case, it's the G-virus. What is this? How is Gideon doing what he was doing right here? And you see right here, this girl has the same eyes, like what we saw with that one BOW chasing Grace. So I wonder if this is what that No, it can't be though, because I thought that BOW was supposed to be Alyssa. But we know that with that Whopper-like BOW we see Leon encountering in Resident Evil Requiem, he also had the white eyes as well. So this must be some other BOW being made, or like this is one of the test subjects involved with whatever this variant of the T-virus is. And this is interesting. So we're out on the open street. There are civilians around, so they're taking a cue from Resident Evil 6, and they're actually putting you in the middle of an outbreak at the moment. But there's going to be civilians around, and we have to protect them.
The city was where it all began for me.
And did Leon lose durability when he deflected that?
The city was where it all began for me.
I can't tell if he's lost durability.
Raccoon City was where it all began for me.
He talks about Raccoon City here. So here's the crater that resulted from the thermobaric missile strike. Interesting that it's just framed here on the wall. Maybe this is where they do those memorials for the Raccoon City incident. Because we know that memorials were going on in Raccoon City, and in Resident Evil 7 this is mentioned on the SS Annabelle. There's a blister head, so you can still do stealth kills on the blister heads, which is nice, obviously.
I'm coming with you.
I'm coming with you, and then we're somewhere here. This is probably outside of the clinic.
We can talk.
And Victor just shows himself here. So what, did Victor just reveal himself as the shutter was closing when Leon separated himself from Grace? Why would he do that? Or maybe this is taking place in a different room. And again, if Victor Gideon was a T-virus researcher, why was he not killed by Umbrella? Or was he killed, but he somehow revived himself using a virus? And we have a couple of shots here. Some kind of Umbrella facility. This is reminding me of the intro of the Resident Evil 3 remake with that cutscene. And then we have some doctors here. We've seen this image before. This is in a computer screen. We have the red umbrella logo. I still question the blue umbrella or the BSAA are going to be involved in any capacity. And we have this door here. Was this some other nest facility? So this would imply that either there was more to the nest facilities in Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake that we didn't explore, or Victor Gideon somehow was in another nest facility. Was this like a Nest 3 facility? That'd be really, really stupid if that was the case. And then we have these children here. Is this related to what William Birkin was doing, experimenting on children? Or is this something entirely different? This reminds me of the blast furnace area from Resident Evil 2 OG. Or really from Darkside Chronicles, because you fought Mr. X in the blast furnace chamber. So I'm not entirely sure what this is. And we have these soldiers here. Their packs look entirely different. I don't think they're wearing those same packs that we see Blue Umbrella wearing in Resident Evil 7 with the Special Incidents and Response team. And I don't know if this is actually the Umbrella team that we see in Resident Evil 2 Remake, or if this is just the BSAA. Like, I'm not entirely sure who these soldiers are. And we have a fan here. And then we have a new type of BOW. And right there, so Leon has the ability to throw melee weapons. So I don't know if it's a context-sensitive action. Like, remember how in Resident Evil 6, when the zombies had, like, pipes in their bodies, Leon could stun the zombie and then perform a context-sensitive melee attack where he takes the pipe out of the zombie and then throws it at another zombie? Maybe it's like that. But the axe just breaks, so he can't really use the weapon, it seems. He can only throw them, which is odd.
More regrets.
I don't want any more regrets.
I don't want any more regrets.
Okay. Regrets about what exactly? I have no idea. So what exactly is this BOW? And does that not look like Nemesis? Like, that face almost looks like Nemesis. And then you have these nacelles on his body. It reminds me of those nacelles on the IVs in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Or with the Ouroboros virus. And we know the Ouroboros virus was derived from the progenitor virus when Wesker made it post-2006. So I'm not entirely sure how Victor Gideon made this kind of BOW. And we see a blister head right there. Where this fight is taking place, I have no idea. But also, you see right there, it looks like Leon's axe is broken, but he doesn't have the ability to sharpen it. Interesting. Or maybe he has to not be aiming in order for the prompt to appear in the HUD there.
Whatever it takes.
And then this BOW returns, so it's going to be following her. So Leon didn't kill this BOW, apparently.
Come in.
And I have no idea what this is. This is reminding me of the basement of the hospital area from Resident Evil 3 Remake. Here's the final shot, and then we have this right here. So this is Raccoon City. And I have no idea if the areas we're going to go to in Raccoon City are entirely new, or if they're going to be reusing assets from Resident Evil 3 Remake and Resident Evil 2 Remake with the streets. Like with that street area when Jill exits the burning apartment. If they're entirely new areas, that'll be interesting. And I wonder if they're going to take areas from Resident Evil 3 OG and put them in different areas in Resident Evil Requiem.
It's been a while since you've been back there.
And is this Sherry? This looks like Sherry. That even sounds like Sherry, because it sounds like the same actress. And what is that embossed on her collar there? Is that supposed to be significant? I have no idea. This really looks like Sherry. I'm amazed they're bringing in Sherry Birkin. I'm surprised she doesn't go into the field. Her weakened G-virus infection should be valuable to Leon in his mission, but she's just relegated to technical support? That's odd. And this is the RPD building.
Yeah.
So why Leon will be coming back here, I have no idea. Because the lab is not located under the RPD. Leon takes a tram and goes to the industrial zone, which is where Birkin's lab is. So I hope they're not making the mistake right here and assuming that Birkin's lab is located under the RPD when it's not. So what Leon is going to find here, I have no idea. Or maybe Victor Gideon has set up shop here? Who knows? But that's the end of the trailer right there. And then we have the screenshots that I've shown here. So this is a screenshot from Resident Evil 3 Remake. This is from Jill's report. So she mentions that those infected by the T-virus seem to become literal zombies. It appears to be communicable via several different avenues outlined below. So bite from an infected individual, contact with crows, and also, this is the rewrite talked about by other YouTubers. Due to the strength of the virus, airborne infection cannot be discounted. Which again, doesn't make sense when factoring in something like Resident Evil Vendetta, where Arius literally said that increasing the toxicity of the enhanced A virus means it cannot be distributed via the air. And so it's back to the old needle. And also, it was the trigger virus variant of the animality virus that was distributed via the air to interact with the latent virus already within individuals because of the fact that they ingested infected water from Agua G Industries, which was a company that Arius owned. So I have no idea if this is actually true that the team that developed Resident Evil 3 Remake provide input to Resident Evil Requiem's team. It's an interesting conspiracy theory right there. But I really have no idea. How would the virus even get in the air if they used a thermobaric missile that would burn the virus? Assuming the virus has like the same flashpoint as gasoline, for instance. I'm using Resident Evil Vendetta as a reference. We have that, and then this part right here. It should be noted that those who survived the incident have not yet developed symptoms. It's unclear whether this is because the virus has a long incubation period, or because we just happen to be resistant to the infection. We ought to remain vigilant even after this investigation period ends. Well, they clearly weren't vigilant because we never saw any indication from the characters post-Resident Evil 2 that they were remaining vigilant about the potential infection. And also, they most likely took the vaccine developed by Will Pharma post-2005. And they also took vaccines for the T-virus used in Resident Evil Death Island. It doesn't make any sense. If you're part of a unit involved with counteracting bioterrorism, you're going to be taking vaccines constantly. And yet somehow Leon has a T-virus lying dormant since Resident Evil 2. This doesn't make sense at all. And then this is the stuff from Resident Evil 5. But it says right here that when Jill took the vaccine, it was assumed that all traces of the virus were eradicated, but instead the virus went dormant. Her extended period in cryogenic sleep somehow reactivated the virus, and shortly after being reactivated, the T-virus completely disappeared from her body, and Jill had antibodies to the virus. So all those years the T-virus was inside her body, forced it to develop a defense system that was nothing short of miraculous. And also because of the T-vaccine she was given, which was the Umbrella vaccine. Yeah, and then it's also mentioned here the progenitor virus by itself is too poisonous for humans, which is why the T-virus projects were done to reduce the toxicity and make it more likely for tyrants to be made, and also for Spencer to achieve his ambitions and goals with spearheading the new evolution with humans. There's just a lot of confusion that results from this trailer. Yeah, like I said before, I had a very mixed reaction to this trailer here. That's all I can really say right now, but this concludes my reaction to this trailer. Stay tuned for when Resident Evil Requiem releases, unless they release more content for Resident Evil Requiem beforehand. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.